Two Boeing 747s are on the same runway. One is accelerating for takeoff. The other is still there. Neither crew can see the other. Within seconds, 583 people will be dead. The usual explanation for Tenerife is simple. A pilot took off without clearance. That is true, but it leaves a much harder question. How did two Boeing 747s end up on the same runway when the information needed to prevent the collision was already there? To understand that, we have to go back. March 27, 1977. Two Boeing 747s are scheduled to fly from the Canary Islands to Las Palmas. Then an explosion closes Gran Canaria Airport. Flights are diverted to Tenerife. Los Rodeos begins filling with aircraft. Parking positions disappear. The parallel taxiway becomes blocked, and the normal flow of traffic starts to break down. Aircraft now have to use the runway itself to move around the airport. It is possible. It is also a very different operation from the one the airport normally handles. Among the aircraft caught in the congestion are KLM 4805 and Pan Am 1736. When Gran Canaria reopens, Pan Am is ready to leave. It cannot pass the KLM. The KLM crew has decided to refuel while waiting, keeping the aircraft on the ground and changing the order in which the two 747s will eventually leave Tenerife. Pan Am will have to move onto the runway and clear the way. The runway at Los Rodeos has two ends. Aircraft can enter at one end, travel down the runway, and turn around at the far end to prepare for departure. That is the movement now taking place. KLM 4805 is moving toward the far end. Pan Am 1736 is following behind it. The intended sequence is straightforward. KLM will reach the far end, turn around, and prepare for takeoff. Pan Am will continue behind it, leave through a taxiway exit, and clear the runway. The tower instructs Pan Am to use the third exit on the left, C3. The crew asks for confirmation. The tower repeats it, third to the left. Pan Am continues down the runway, trying to identify the intersections. C3 is a difficult exit for a Boeing 747. C4 is considerably easier. Pan Am passes C3 and continues. We cannot say with certainty why. The investigation does not establish a single explanation for that decision. What we do know is that Pan Am remains on the runway, and the crew continues to communicate that fact. Then the weather changes the situation. Fog and low cloud move across the airport, and visibility fluctuates sharply. At times, the runway can be seen. At other times, visibility drops to a few hundred meters. The tower can no longer rely on a clear visual picture of the aircraft. The crews cannot reliably see each other either. From here, position and radio communication become much more important. KLM 4805 reaches the far end of the runway and turns around. Now it is facing the direction of takeoff. The crew is also watching the clock. New Dutch duty time restrictions mean that a prolonged delay could prevent the flight from continuing. At the same time, the weather is deteriorating. The possibility of losing the opportunity to depart is real. Exactly how much that pressure influenced the decision that follows cannot be known with certainty. What we can reconstruct is what happened inside the cockpit. At 17:05:41, the KLM first officer says, "We don't have an ATC clearance." The captain replies, "No, I know that." The first officer requests the clearance. The tower provides a route clearance. It is not a takeoff clearance. KLM is still waiting for permission to depart. Then, during the readback, the first officer says, "We're now at takeoff." And within seconds, the aircraft begins to move. The brakes are released. The engines begin to accelerate. KLM 4805 is starting its takeoff roll. The tower has not cleared it for takeoff. The controller responds, "Okay, then, stand by for takeoff. I will call you. Wait for takeoff. I will call you." KLM is already accelerating. At almost the same moment, another transmission enters the frequency. Pan Am. "We are still taxiing down the runway." The two transmissions overlap. Inside the KLM cockpit, the interference makes the exchange harder to hear clearly. The information itself, however, is still there. The tower knows Pan Am is on the runway. Pan Am knows it is on the runway, and KLM is moving toward takeoff. Then the tower says, "Report runway clear." Pan Am answers, "We'll report when we're clear." There is no report that the runway is clear. Pan Am is still there, and that information reaches the KLM cockpit. Inside the KLM cockpit, the flight engineer asks, "Is he not clear then?" The captain does not understand. "What do you say?" The engineer repeats the question. "Is he not clear, that Pan American? Is Pan American still on the runway?" This is the last recorded moment in which someone inside the KLM cockpit directly questions whether the runway is clear. The captain responds, "Oh yes." The aircraft continues accelerating. There are only seconds left. Pan Am is still inside the fog. KLM is coming toward it. Then the Pan Am crew sees the KLM emerging from the fog. The captain shouts, "There he is!" The first officer shouts, "Get off! Get off! Get off!" Pan Am applies power and attempts to escape. KLM attempts to rotate and climb over the Pan Am. There is no longer enough time. At 17:06, 47.44, the two Boeing 747s collide. The KLM aircraft is destroyed. All 248 people aboard are killed. On Pan Am, 335 of the 396 people aboard are killed. 583 people die. The Spanish investigation identified the actions of the KLM commander as the fundamental cause. He began the takeoff without authorization, did not comply with the instruction to stand by, continued the takeoff after Pan Am's transmission, and answered affirmatively when the flight engineer questioned whether Pan Am was clear. The investigation also identified contributing factors, including the phraseology used in the communications, Pan Am remaining on the runway rather than leaving at the third intersection, and the unusual congestion at Tenerife. The changing weather and the pressure associated with duty time limitations were also considered relevant circumstances. But the value of Tenerife is not in reducing the accident to one sentence. By the time KLM began its takeoff roll, the normal operation at Los Rodeos had already been replaced by something much more complicated. The runway was being used as a taxiway. The airport was congested. Pan Am was still trying to leave the runway. Visibility was disappearing. The crews and the tower no longer had the same visual picture. A phrase was understood differently. KLM began moving before receiving takeoff clearance. The tower told it to wait. Pan Am said it was still on the runway, and even after that information reached the KLM cockpit, the aircraft continued. That is what makes Tenerife so difficult to explain. The information needed to prevent the collision was not completely missing. It appeared in different places, at different moments, through different people. What failed was the ability to turn that information into a shared understanding of the situation before there was no time left to act. Tenerife became one of the defining accidents in the history of aviation safety. Its lessons contributed to major changes in crew coordination and to the development of crew resource management. The goal was bigger than teaching pilots to avoid individual mistakes. It was to make sure that uncertainty, disagreement, and critical information could reach the decision before the decision became irreversible. Because Tenerife showed how dangerous it can be when the right information is present. But the people who need it do not understand the same situation at the same time. If you're passionate about aviation and want to discover the stories that change the way we fly forever, subscribe to Cleared Above. New documentaries every 2 weeks. See you on the next flight.